Welcome back to the Humble Market Timer YouTube channel. Once again, if you enjoy the content, please like, comment, and subscribe. In today's video, I want to look at some upside targets in the short term for silver. I've done some previous videos regarding potential pullback points for silver if we did have a pullback. But in this video, I wanted to focus on upside targets if we have a push higher in the short term. Before I go any further, please check the description for my disclaimer. Once again, these are my sole ideas, not investment advice. Now, I can't look at upside targets for silver without first looking at the gold to silver ratio chart, because I think I've done a pretty good job, if you looked at my content in the past month or so, establishing that the gold and silver ratio is a key component in figuring out upsides and downsides for silver. As you can see here, I talked many times about it hitting this particular trend line right here. And if you notice, we pushed down to that trend line and we have started to pretty much start to consolidate at that trend line. If we continue to consolidate that trend line and then we move lower, that would trigger the next push in the price of silver. So always keep an eye on the gold and silver ratio when you're looking at silver. I believe it will also tell you kind of the direction in which silver is headed, at least in the short term. But this is always a key chart to pay attention to. But now looking at the silver chart, we've kind of established also some lines here of the price action in silver. We had this action where we sort of broke out of this long-term parallel, consolidated, and then had a really nice push higher. I drew this line right here to represent a resistance that we've had. And then I also have this parallel drawn right here to show you the price action that silver has pretty much been in since the month of about May of 2025. We're currently in the top portion of this parallel, and I have stated many times that if we continue to stay in the top portion of this parallel, the price action in silver is bullish, whether the daily action is down or up. As long as we stay above this midpoint line of the parallel, we're bullish. If we were to fall below the midpoint line, you can expect a bit of a pullback, but that won't necessarily mean the end of the silver run. So keeping those things in mind, we have two key areas that we can look for. And if you notice, based on these resistances that I have in parallels, this is sort of the key confluent point for where these two lines intersect. And we're going to see where those lines intersect once again if we project silver to continue to push higher. So first, let's look at this parallel. I always try to look at if we were to break the parallel, we first have to break this line right here, which is going to act as the first area of resistance inside the parallel. And if we break this line, then the next line we need to break would be this top portion of the parallel. And if we were to break this top portion of the parallel, you then can utilize measured moves by replacing the midpoint with the top portion of the parallel, and you get action that looks something like this. And you could potentially have a push that could lead you to the top portion of this new parallel. But again, you first have to break the midpoint of this new parallel that we've drawn. So keep an eye on this midpoint area of this new parallel that I've drawn. So that's the first key area that I think we could look for if silver continues to push higher in the short term. Also, I want to look at this particular line right here, and I want to do a couple of things with this line. Let's turn this resistance line into a parallel. And I want you to kind of watch what I'm doing here, and this is something that maybe you can do on your own when you're looking at the price action of things and technical analysis. If you notice, I'm drawing a line right along where I had previously put that line, and I'm dragging the line down to reach the portion of the price action where we sort of bottomed here in the price action. And then just before we had the big curve up move. So really, this now new parallel sort of represents the price action that we have seen in silver if we based it on this middle line that I had initially drawn that I showed earlier. So if you want to project a measured move, and the measured move would occur if we were to break the top portion of this new parallel that I have drawn here. So again, replacing the midpoint with the top portion of the parallel, you get action that goes to about here. And so we now have a new parallel where if we were to break this line right here, which now serves as a midpoint for this parallel, we could push all the way up here. Now, if you notice, these two lines intersect right about here. Let me draw a circle in this area so you can kind of see where that area is. Move it a little bit over, move about right there. You can see that is the area where these two lines meet, and is in my belief that looking at technical analysis and looking at how confluence works, if we get a break of this key midpoint line and this key midpoint line, I think we will head to this particular point. And if things sort of lined up based on how the chart is lining up, that is at about $120 to $125. And we would actually get there by potentially Valentine's Day to the end of February. So we're looking at, based on technical analysis and measured moves, if we get a push in silver where we break those previous parallels, I believe you will see price action push all the way to $125. Oftentimes you can see when you have stocks that have pullbacks, small pullbacks, if they maintain strength, you can get a serious move and almost potentially a double from that area that acted as the initial top in the price action. One example of that, and let me see if I can pull up this example right quick. One example of that would be in SanDisk. This is, let's see if I can adjust this a little bit. You can see how we had this big move in SanDisk. We pulled back probably to the 0.38, around that area. We held that area because the stock is so strong, and it pulled back to about around 180, and we surged all the way back up here to about 350, 360, which is almost a double from the pullback because the strength of the stock was so strong. And you could potentially see similar action in silver if we were to maintain this area. We pulled back to about 70. If that 70 area holds and we push higher and break some of these resistances in the parallels, you could push all the way up here to about the 125 area. Not quite a double, but about 80% higher than the pullback area that we hit in silver from that previous top of 84. So be on the lookout for that 125 price target area. That's sort of my new short-term price target. I think we can get there potentially in mid to late February based on where we have confluence here. If shortages still keep occurring in China, if we still have that debasement trade that's really strong, if we still have sort of conflicts throughout the world, and things continue to push the dollar down, you can see precious metals continue to rise, and you will see silver skyrocket even higher. Hope you like the content. If you like it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.